question is now, how can we enter into this new convention world? And certainly the human being will be at the heart of this. So we have the needs, motivation, hope, moving people. And one term you will hear a lot about in the next minutes will be purpose. So the real purpose behind an event. And I think that this is what we're trying to achieve with an event, and that is the most important thing. Everything else is just secondary and built up on this participants' experience design model. So the purpose will always be behind everything. So my first thesis, talking about experiences, and the planners and organizers in this room will certainly agree with this, that this is a trend term, and you will hear they're very trendy. You say, so what's the newest thing? And we all need a VR station, and we all need to have new interactive workshop formats. So yes, experiences are the trend, but very often they're just hanging around in free space. So they are not embedded in a concept, and so you have a new experience or a new format just because you have to do that, because you need this virtual reality station outside, without having thought about the reason for this. So what are our goals? And you can see the slide here behind me, and it's funny. It's from C2 in Montreal, which is my favorite conference. I'm a great fan, and it's often been cited as one of the best conferences in the world. And you have the Cirque du Soleil behind it with a creative team, and they think up these things. So you have people of a small group talking about something, and they're virtually in the air in a net. And it's a very good experience, but you soon notice that, what are we trying to achieve by this? So is there a true context this has been linked to? So this is an example as to how experiences may also end up at a dead end. So I'd like to tell you how you could do things differently. Now, some smaller examples, everyday examples, mini experiences, but nevertheless, they are very strong in what they achieve because there's a context to them. There's some kind of awareness or a good cause, and people are approached. They're supposed to learn something to change their behavior, and that can be inspirational for us as well as to how to plan for conferences, and I will give you some examples later. A successful conference makes the audience feel something is happening that matters and that they're part of it. So let me analyze that. Something that matters in the real world. Not just, okay, let's do some linking, networking. People are supposed to have fun and enjoy their time. No, but just remember this blue planet in space. We want to make a change. We want to make a change to the real world, not just in the conference room. And making them a part of it is part of being the community, so being a human being. And so we talk about the aspect of tribes, meaning groups with a certain identity. And they get together. You are here because you're ITB participants. Some of you come every year. And the question is, in everyday life, would you see yourself as an ITB member? Probably not so much. You would probably see yourself as part of a certain industry. And you would be proud of being part of this group. And the same holds true for all events which are recurring events. If you have a one-off thing, it's more difficult. But if you are a visitor and go to an event more than once, then you'd like to feel part of it. And the event organizer can either promote this or can ignore this. So purpose and community, tribes, these are things I'm helping our interpreters at the moment because these are English terms I'm using in German. But I do hope that I have made myself understood. Purpose is the most important thing, and everything else is subordinate to that. I will show you the tools you can use, but if you have not answered the question of purpose, then I, as a consultant, would not continue planning. what we often see in sessions when talking about purpose and trying to find out what the purpose is, then we can see that very often the purpose is mixed up with the goals, which is a normal thing. But you say, what do we want to do with this event? Okay, we want to strike some connections between people. We want networking, but we have to ask why. And then by asking this question of why, we will then find out what the real purpose is. And so we're talking about making a real change in the physical world. So how can we have an output at the end, tangible output? So how can we get from purpose to experience? How can we then have the perfect conference? So this model is what I call the inverted iceberg experience process, something I made up just as a joke, really, but I've repeated it in sessions and workshops. People always like to take up on that, and so this makes it clear where the focus is. So we are below the iceberg. That's all the work. The visitor to the conference will see nothing of this. So you have the tip of the iceberg down to the bottom, and that is where we build our experience journey on. Here you have a Maslow needs pyramid translated into the event industry. So we have the basic needs. So we all know that when we're hungry, we have to go and get some food. We don't want to wait too long at the toilet. These are things all agencies and planning agencies have to take into account. And from there on upwards, the pyramid gets more and more ambitious, and it's more and more difficult how to plan for this. So the main point I've been talking about so long is up here, the purpose driving us. So the connection with the real world, and you'll have to try and integrate that. Let me illustrate this. You go and get food, very important, but maybe there's something more than just the basic thing. This is from our last Falling Walls conference last November. So we had a food truck outside, and the gentleman there handing out the food, Ibrahim, is an Egyptian. And he's not just the person handing out the food, but he's also the chef. So he cooked the food, he chose the food, because it's the food reminding him of his family in Egypt, whom he hasn't seen in 4 years. So we asked him, please, to cook something which means memories to him. And all 800 participants know that. They know that he chose it. He prepared it. They can go and talk to him about his memories. So this was something connected with scientists who talked about neurosciences and memories and how that functions, and then also connected it with food. So the simple thing of just going to grab some food, maybe there may be much more to it. And now in the pyramid, right at the top, there we think about needs, ulterior needs our participants may have. So we have some CEOs of big companies, some Nobel laureates, and some of the Nobel laureates said that we'd like to go and speak up against the politics and policies in the US, but we don't dare do that. So we had a kind of a demonstration of probably the brightest minds of the world standing in front of the Brandenburg gates and talked about alternative facts. Stop here. That was the slogan. So that was when there was all this discussion about alternative facts. So there you have some political needs, or some needs at a higher level being met. So the community gets together, they're proud, and they have this feeling of togetherness. And that is something which will remain. It'll be within the people, and when they get together again, they feel like going home. Everybody wants to have robots today. CeBIT, they had robots, so we need robots. And then very often you have the robots running there. If a robot hands out the food, and then you have a topic which is very tangible, and it's about what people have been talking about. human-robot interaction, what are the physiological foundations for this, and you can see this working. So it's a very functional experience. I think that should always move people because of the contents, and it's not just emotional trigger for the moment, but long-standing experience. So something which makes such an impression on you that you really want to change things. For example, with plastic litter in the oceans, we had a scientist from Tasmania talking about plastic litter in the southern Pacific. And she is a researcher in seabirds, and she finds huge bird colonies with huge amounts of plastic in their bellies because of the plastic going into the rivers, going into the sea, being eaten by the birds. And here's a photograph from her presentation, giving her presentation. So what we did, we translated this into day-to-day experience. So we used the German Berlin litter company, and they helped us. We collected the plastic litter from all the participants during the conference and piled it up in front of the stage, in front of her. In the end, she wasn't visible anymore. So what does that mean for her, and what does that mean for us? And you all have these plastic badges. Now, we had collected from the Southern Pacific, collected by her. We had these plastic pallets, which everybody had in the badge for several days and then took it home with him as a sort of negative talisman, sort of in memory of this conference. So these are experiences which will endure and last for longer than just the conference. Then another element, design for serendipity. That's quite a new topic, but how can we promote participants meeting by chance? There's a kind of magic in these meetings which you cannot plan for. You meet somebody when queuing up for coffee and you find a common topic, and you then turn into friends or business partners. So this is very important. So we also have a way of trying to plan for these kinds of occasions. My most interesting but also most complicated experience I ever designed is something I'm quite proud of. We have a festive dinner at the end of the conference every year with 500 people. And for this conference and the presentations, we invited a very special speaker on AI who spoke about computational creativity, so creativity of algorithms. And we wondered, what can we do? And I did some research, and I phoned colleagues from IBM in New York who used to use the Watson program, and they're still using it. So it's the algorithm which beat the chess champion and the best Jeopardy gamers in the US. And they had, at the time, a new program whereby Watson became a chef as well. And we said, okay, we need that. So we used them and our chefs in Berlin, and then had some planning calls. And we used the software and our chefs for designing something. So we had IBM Watson, this box, designing that, and then we served it to the people. So what could be more impressive than eating food cooked by AI when you have no idea what it is in front of you on the plate? People liked it, but they also said, but next year we want something normal, please. Now we have to make clear what the purpose is going to be. All members planning here, people booking us, the planners, the people implementing the plan, everybody involved has to know what the purpose is and what the goals are. Next step, an event is a chain of experiences. Think of this participant experience journey with the beads on a necklace, and how can we tweak this? That can be done fairly easily with just a few hours of time. And Then we want to have experiences for deeper effect. Thinking of handing out the food truck, or how we can surprise people with experiences they had never expected. And then, and here I want to touch upon what the previous speaker said, we need to experiment outside our comfort zone. If we all plan new things, try out new formats, then we'll have a huge amount of new formats which can help us into the new event world.